Hi, I'm going to answer some questions. There was a request for some sort of musical questions to be answered, and so I thought it would be easier to just talk to the camera than to write them out. So let's start with the first question. How old were you when you started playing guitar? I was 18, and it was because I heard Buckets of Rain being played on a steel string guitar by Harriet Hirschhorn in the stairwell at the end of the dorm, probably the first week of college. And it was a song that I had a friend back home who played guitar. He wanted to figure out that song, but he didn't know it was in open D. That whole Blood on the Tracks record is in open D. He didn't know. And so I asked Harriet, can you write down those chords? Because my friend, he wants to play that song. She said, well, it's in a different tuning. The chords are different, but let me just show you. I said, well, I don't play guitar. She said, well, just, put your fingers in the right place. You can take that knowledge back home and show your friend. I said, oh, okay. So, so I did that, and I borrowed her guitar, and I learned the song. And then I borrowed a guitar to take home for Thanksgiving break. And hid it under the bed. And when my friend was over and we were, talking, and he was playing songs like usual, I said, now about that Buckets of Rain, I have a thing to give you. And I brought out the guitar and I played it for him. And he didn't receive it as a gift. He was looking at me as if I'd taken something from him. And I said, so do you want me to, you can play it? He said, no, you play it. I said, well, I'm not a guitar player. And there was laughter, and I thought, what? I was just putting my fingers, on this. I'm just listening to it. Okay. But Dave, you're a guitar player. Damn. So that's how that happened. Next question. What was your first guitar? My first guitar, the Guild D25C, C for cherry, the cherry stain. Oh, this baby. I love it. This guitar got away from me about 40 years ago. I sold it thinking, I had a better guitar. And then for all these years, I've been saying, so you ever want to sell me that guitar back? And eventually, like 5 years ago, he said, yeah, I could sell you that guitar. I'm not playing it. I said, uh-oh, how much? But it was great to get it back. The next question is, so your first guitar, did you buy it yourself? Yes, in the Chicago Guitar Gallery, downtown Chicago, under the L tracks, a lovely guitar store. I remember it well. So, did your parents or grandparents play any instruments? If so, what did they play? Well, there's a guitar that shows up in old pictures that my grandfather owned, my dad's dad. I never heard that guitar or saw it, and I never saw my grandpa play, but apparently he played guitar, and it looked like a nice guitar too. What are the guitars I play? Well, the main love has always been the Olson. And the Olson mostly stays home for recording. It's been wild, the pandemic time doing these, sort of, whatever this thing is. um, because I get to play a lot of different guitars, and they're so fun. Like this little Frankencaster ridiculous thing, which sounds so good. And it's a Venus. It's like nobody even wants to talk about this guitar. But I love it. It's got a big club of a neck, really easy to play for acoustic players like me. Of course, when I play live, I play these rain songs. And, this is the David Wilcox signature rain song. Once I was in an airport, I was playing guitar. It was a long layover. This guy comes and sits and listens, and he says, "You're pretty good. What kind of guitar is that?" And I said, "Well, it's actually the David Wilcox signature rain song." And he said, "Oh, cool. What's your name?" I said, "I'm David Wilcox." He says, "Oh, I get it. So like whatever guitar you play, you just sign it, and then it's like the David Wilcox." No. Oh. The carbon fiber is so fun to travel with. I check it in a soft case. And, I just play it really stupid. The airline people go, "Are you sure you want to check that guitar?" And I say, "Why not?" And they just think, "Okay, he's crazy. But we'll check it." Um, and, there's other weird, interesting stuff like the Jerry Jones baritone guitar. And, of course, the Trace guitar. This is interesting. Wow. Um, it's not tuned. So this is a really interesting. I got curious about Trace guitars from Nil Lara, and it's really fun to explore. It's tuned like the sort of three middle strings on the guitar, the D, G, and B string. So, but they're in octave courses. Anyway, too much information. What strings do you use? Brands and gauges. I use Elixir strings on the guitar that I travel with. The rain songs. Those Elixir strings, the coated strings, when you first put them on, they're not quite as bright as a really bright uncoated string. But the thing about the rain song is it's got so much high frequency anyway that it levels it out. It makes it just right. And of course, the coated strings last a long time. I change tunings a bunch, so I still change the strings every 4 or 5 gigs. But I have to tell you, I was at Yorma's place, the Fur Piece Ranch, and Yorma was changing the strings on one of his electrics, and there were some fanboys, me included, kind of all like, "Yorma, what kind of strings do you use?" And after they had left, he shows me the package and he says, "Now the quality you're looking for in a set of strings is free." I love that. Anyway, I use the bluegrass gauge, light on top and medium on the bottom. And next question, do you use a pick? What brand and what thickness? I love this, just like way into the weeds questions. I use a Blue Chip TAD 80 rounded triangle pick, Chris Thiele's Blue Chip picks. They're like, I don't know, $80 or something. It's nuts. No, maybe 75, maybe 50 for the TAD 80. But anyway, I got several of them and I like them. And when you drop one of those, you stop the song and look for it. Not really, but almost. I did leave one at the Sisters Festival. I searched all over the stage because I have this little pick holder right at the top. And it's so funny that I pull a pick off of here really fast and nobody sees it. And they're flesh-colored picks. So there was once after a gig, somebody came up and sort of was asking very conspiratorially, "Hey, man, what's the button do?" I said, "What button? What are you talking about?" "I saw you, man. There's that button like right up at the top of the neck." So, of course, I said, "I'm sorry, I can't tell you about the button." Do you use any effects pedals? If so, what are your favorites? On my live rig, there's some songs that I use a complex echo. There's 3 different times on this echo and it kind of gallops, but that's all through this little submixer that I use. It's the Bose mixer that they made for the L1 and L2 systems. But I just use it to mix my guitar pickups. There's a lot of pickups in this guitar. Many. Like if you were to just count transducers, it's more than 12. And plus you got a kick drum. This is a voice coil set up so that you can play it without even knowing it's there. It's just in the position where when you strum it, you can kick it or not. And you can also use it for finger picking. It's got a separate output. There's a bunch of different outputs. There's the MIDI thing, and I use 2 of the stereo pendulum preamp modules. And anyway, that's a whole 12-step program. Hi, my name's Dave. I like pickups. Hi, Dave. But the Rain Song works perfectly if you want a choir of pickups, because the body is so light that when you first get the guitar, if you hold it at the heel of the neck like this, the neck is heavier than the body. So when you put a bunch of pickups in it, then it balances like a regular guitar. Anyway, effects pedals. Now, for the for the whatever this is, I use this, what is it? It's an El Hombre, and it is by J Rocket. And it's just a little puts a little crunch, little tube thing in it, and a Sans Amp bass driver, and a delay. I like the Line 6 green box. And my old 30-year-old tremulator, probably 35 now, I'm on my second tremulator. I was putting it in series with another thing, and I put too much signal into it. I sent it back to Demeter, and I got a message from Demeter on my little voicemail. "It doesn't look good for your tremulator. I think you fried it." So I got a new one, and I really like it. And I've got the Matchless Vibro Box, their tube tremolo thing, which has an interesting sort of tone sweep on it that's really fun. And of course, the Matchless SC30. And I've got the German pentode tube in there, so it's just really silent, no hiss, really clean. It's so fun. I love that amp. And when I was traveling years ago, and when Matchless still had the big building in California, we stopped by, and Mark looked at this amp. He said, "Wait a minute." He said, "I built this." It was one of the really early ones. And so it's a lovely amp. Makes a lot of different interesting tones. That's enough about stomp boxes. Do you work on your own guitars, or do you bring them to a guitar tech? I work on a lot of these guitars. I've done interesting stuff like I shaved this neck down on the resonator guitar. I mean, I just got the draw knife and just pulled about a 3/8 of an inch of wood off of that neck. That was kind of fun. And of course I made the Trace guitar, and I made these saddles on the Olson, these little whatever this awesome black wood is. I can't remember. But anyway, I do like working on stuff, and I can do some stuff, like do the frets and stuff when it needs it. But I know when to call for help. Let's see. Are there any guitar techs that you would like to recommend? I always went to Joe Glazier in Nashville to put in all those RMC pickups on many guitars, 5 different Olsons, and well, anyway, it goes on. But Randy Hughes here in Asheville is really good. He put the RMC in this guitar and made an ebony sort of lift to hold the RMC pickups more securely so they wouldn't have too much leverage on them on the break angle. And let's see, what else? Do you have a favorite guitar shop? What makes a good guitar shop? I don't know. I like the kind of guitar shops where you can go in and play those ridiculously expensive ancient Martins that cost $200,000. They're fun, but I tend to have the best conversations here at my hometown music store, Musician's Workshop. So let's see. What age did you start writing songs? I was 20 years old when I first wrote some kind of listenable songs. I can still remember them. Yeah. It's weird how I was so confident and so oblivious. It was as if, I'm like showing my new scientific invention. Ladies and gentlemen, I call it the wheel. Rhyming heart with part. You got to do it once. Sure. Okay. Anyway, what is my songwriting process? I have a whole podcast I'm recording. There's like 10 episodes. It really goes deep. But I think the brief little cliff notes of my songwriting process is I imagine that it's like a therapy process or more like a spiritual practice. It's just a way to practice listening for the subtle discernment of my heart. Whether I'm saying, this chord or that chord. I don't know. This chord or that chord. Play it, feel it, play it, feel it. I don't know. I think this one. That has been the thing that music gave me that has made it all worthwhile. It's really something. Is it the music or the lyrics that usually come to you first? Unfortunately, that question is the question that gets asked in every sort of music interview, and it's such a weird question. I think for me, it's the idea map that comes first. I think what I start out is asking myself, okay, who's hearing this and what are they feeling? In other words, like, what is the song for? Like, if there's tools on your workbench, the right tool for the right job is a great thing. So when I'm writing a song, I have to think to myself, okay, what is the idea? What is the emotion? Are there contrasting ideas? Are there contrasting, I once was lost, but now I'm found kind of things? What's the song do? Do you write old school on paper or electronically? When I'm writing custom songs, I do custom songs. I put my musical knowledge in service of other people's stories and other people's healing. When I write custom songs, it's pen and paper. When I write stuff for me, I'm always just talking it into my phone, line by line. and sort of sketching out the arc of the story. Like, okay, well, it has to end with this idea, so where should it begin in order to get there in 2 verses and a bridge? I'm so much better at that. I've actually kind of learned how, and it's such a fun thing to have that facility of knowing my heart, knowing sort of like how to find the emotion that I'm after in a particular musical setting, you know? Man, it's really satisfying these days. It's too bad that I don't get to do this much longer just because I'm old and shit, but it has been delightful to learn how, and it's taken a long, long time. Who are the top 3 musicians that have had a major influence on you? Well, the first ones were Joni Mitchell. The first dozen songs I learned were Joni Mitchell songs. Then I learned some John Martin and Nick Drake. I learned about Nick Drake in 1979, and that was powerful. And I always kind of, when I was envisioning what I wanted from my music, you know, I wanted to go deep like Nick Drake, but live. That was an interesting qualifier. And I wanted to be brave like Joni and not just make slick little songs that showed no fingerprints, but really sort of let people into my world. And more than that, it was more, I wanted the songs to set a precedent of how I saw the world, to help me acclimate towards seeing the world in a particular way that was more alive for me. So let's see, what else? Who would you most want to jam with? Interesting question. I mean, of course, if you make it like living or dead, then there's the whole thing about like, well, for the sake of humanity, I could find out a lot of things about some musicians that have long since passed away. So, I don't know, Mozart. But in terms of like jamming, just a little while ago, I was having a lot of fun playing lots of Joni Mitchell songs while Alice Howe was singing. We were both touring and met up a couple weeks ago, and that was so fun because that's the way I started playing guitar, just learning all those Joni songs and seeing if I could find somebody to sing them because I was sure I couldn't sing. I was so sure I couldn't sing that I couldn't sing. And then somebody tricked me into singing. I was walking in the woods and she started doing this parody of sort of the bombastic opera singer. And she said, "You do it." And I did. And she said, "You can sing." Oh, no. What's your favorite desert island album? Probably the Apple Venus record, XTC. It's an orchestral record of interesting, quirky, wonderful songs. What was the first concert you attended? Well, I'd been to symphony concerts with my parents, Cleveland Orchestra. But the first concert I went to by myself was to see David Wilcox, the Canadian David Wilcox, at the Riverboat Cafe in Toronto. I was probably 12 years old. What was the last concert you attended? Well, there's the stuff that, you know, being part of a festival and stuff and just hanging, listening to other people. But the last concert that I paid for was Madison Cunningham. Wonderful. Where and when was your first paid gig? Well, I was a street musician in several different towns, and I made a much better living than I would have if I had been working full-time at some, you know, minimum wage job that I could have gotten back then. So, what's the highlight of your musical career? It's silly, these kind of questions, but let me put a twist on the question and say the highlight of my musical career is that through my study of music, I've learned to perceive the subtle guidance of my heart. And that has given me the tools to harmonize my whole life and make my heart sing. Next question. What has been the worst gig so far and why? Now, this is a philosophical question. As Artie Traum used to say, the best gigs are the worst gigs, and the worst gigs are the best gigs. And what he's getting at is the fact that this humble craft draws us in for reasons bigger than we ever know. And it may be that what we're really after is a life that is more alive. We don't want to just learn music. Music comes to us to teach us about life, I think. I think it's kind of a backdoor spirit practice. So it could be that the gigs that are really tough teach you how to get outside your initial judgment, be in the moment with compassion, start with where you are, not try to have some persona, but just really try to open and feel the hearts of everyone there. Some of my favorite gigs are really tough rooms. You know, those sticky floor, stinky rock and roll clubs where everyone's uncomfortable. And they're just like, okay, we're standing here. Bring it. Come on, bring it. None of this like, I wrote this song because, fuck you, play it. So, you know, that's satisfying. And if you're playing a place that has, you know, everything perfect and even the catering's good, you got no story, you know. So I've always enjoyed the tough gigs. Shows what you're made of. What are some of the venues you enjoy performing at the most? Yeah, I've played some lovely halls, but it's the people that make a night of music fantastic. There have been venues with fancy balconies, clear sound, elaborate lighting, but it's that focus, it's the intensity of the connection that makes the magic. It's gotta all be the audience. I'm just holding the mirror. How do you work out your set list? I find the songs that I most need to hear that night just to keep me sane, just to hold me accountable to the best of what music has shown me. So, for example, when I'm playing Slippery Slope, there's this line in there about, you know, sort of standing where I am. It's about crossing a very slippery bottom, slate bottom creek. And as I play the song, it centers me. I just get back in the moment. And there's a lot of songs that are like that are sort of beacons that I'm headed toward. There are some songs that are just cautioning me away from something I don't want to do, but most of my songs are, I play them because I want to learn how to live the perspective that's in the song. Is there any advice you wish someone had given you when you were first starting out in the music business? I got all the good advice I ever needed. All I needed to do was follow it, which of course I didn't do. There were people who told me everything I needed to hear. And, you know, it's like that old cliche, you know, I wish I'd known then what I know now. Well, somebody told me then what I know now. No, I'm not going to do that. But the strategic sabotage of my career, so to speak, along the way has been a really interesting thing. It could be that at the soul level, I have given myself enough attention to take what I do seriously, but I have sabotaged my career enough so that I don't have more attention than I can handle. That was more crucial, in my younger years, but I'm still kind of grateful that I have this ability to go play music for people who've never heard me. That's a great thing. Imagine the people who, have hits, and the people are saying, hey, play that thing that you did 2 decades ago. I don't have to do that because I ain't got no hits. So it's pretty fun that I can play all new stuff. And it's like a conversation. You don't say to your friend, hey, can we say the things that we said last time we got together? No. What have you been up to lately? So that's the way I sort of put my set together. I'm grateful. Let's see. Do you have suggestions for a guitarist or songwriter who might be stuck in a musical rut? Collaboration, experimentation with open tunings and different instruments always works for me. Next question. If you weren't a singer-songwriter, what would you be doing for work? I might just be fixing stuff. I might be part of an intentional community, just, fixing the solar collectors or whatever. Or I might have followed my love of conflict resolution or adventure travel. Actually, that was probably my favorite job when I was leading bike trips. Did that for many years in the summer. Please list some of your upcoming shows. Well, there are some adventure travel things. So my website, davidwilcox.com, will take you to all of those. Okay, that's all the questions. Thanks. See ya.